Well, Razorback fans, it's a new year, it's a new me, a new you, but will it be new hogs? Let's talk about in today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season with FanDuel because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful, wonderful Friday as you finally made it. And I appreciate everyone's patience. I actually haven't been able to do a Locked On over the past few days. Been feeling a little under the weather. You can probably tell from my voice I'm a little bit trying to recover from it too. So, but hopefully everybody had a wonderful New Year's as it is now 2025 officially. And it's always about some new things that are going on. And we'll talk about some new things that are happening for Arkansas, like a coaching change in the football side of things and it's a little bit of the college football playoff. But I wanted to open my very first Locked On Razorbacks podcast of the year 2025 to a very interesting thing that I like to do. I feel like I've done it previously many times. I wouldn't say every time, but just talk about resolutions. And when the new year comes around, it's always a feeling of refreshment, of rejuvenation, of all of us, whether it's personally or with our families or with our careers or whatever, having a clean slate to be able to look ahead and say, these are the things that we want to accomplish this year that we didn't get to accomplish the year before. And we're going to do whatever it takes to get to that point and to make that happen. I think I remember reading a study that when it comes to people's New Year's resolutions, more than 50% of them are not met or at least come to an end by February. So resolutions are good in theory and it's a good mentality and it's a good start, but given the circumstances and given the traditions and trends, it's not something that stays with you. But I'm not here to talk about our personal ones. I'm here to talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks and the resolutions that they should have in the year 2025. Now, of course, it'd be easy to say, win a national championship in every sport. Duh. But let's try to be realistic because I feel like, hey, if I made my New Year's resolution that I want to be able to have as much money as Bill Gates, that's probably not realistic. So let's just try to keep it into perspective if you don't mind. But there are some things, though, that are realistic resolutions that I believe the Arkansas Razorback Athletic Department and programs need to have. And for the Razorback basketball, we'll start with that because it's about to get kicked off and really get going against Tennessee, which we'll talk about a little bit too. But looking at that particular game and that particular season and looking at what John Calipari has done so far this season, Arkansas is 23rd in the country. They are walking into the SEC, which there's never been a time the SEC has been stronger than what it is now. I mean, it's unbelievable. I think Joe Lunardi, if you're looking at his bracketology, he's got 13 of the 16 SEC teams in the NCAA tournament. And Arkansas, some of their toughest games are all going to be on the road. It's not going to be easy to navigate through all of this. However, I do believe that there's one goal that Razorback basketball needs to accomplish this season. Regardless of how many games you win in the SEC tournament, regardless of how many games you win in the SEC, what you need to do is you need to at least get to that second weekend of the NCAA tournament, at minimum. And the reason being is because you got to shut up all the haters. You're under a microscope because of John Calipari and him coming over here to Arkansas. And everyone's going to be interested in exactly what you end up doing. But I would even say more people would be interested in you failing. They want to see you fail. They want to see Calipari fail They want to see you guys go down in flames. So that way they can laugh at you. Ha, ha, ha. You thought this would work. Ha. You're behind the times, blah, blah, blah. All of that nonsense. By getting to the second weekend, you would at least cause people to shut up for a while. And to me, that's worth it. Shutting people up is one of the most fun things you could ever accomplish, especially as a fan. People really like to rag on you or make fun of you. And trust me, Razorback fans, you've gone through a lot of that. But it would be nice for a change to finally shut up everybody that's been saying those things to you. And it's a very realistic expectation. You have the talent. It's about getting guys healthy. I mean, Nelly Davis is the one that is now dealing with injury, and you had Jonas Adu dealing with injury, and Big Z dealing with injury. You just had injuries galore and having to deal with them. But now it's about just doing enough, doing what you can, winning as many games as possible, of course, but getting to the NCAA tournament, and once you get to that point, getting to that second weekend. At minimum. I'm not saying, hey, go to the Sweet 16 and end it there, but anything more than the Sweet 16 or further is going to really ignite and really showcase and shut some people up and thinking for all of us that, hey, this could work. This could work in a really great way. Here's my New Year's resolution for the Razorback baseball team. This is a simple one, and I think this is the one that we all of us are 100% on board with. Get to the dadgum College World Series. Just get to the College World Series. You have been one of the best teams in the SEC for the past 2 seasons. You have been the most consistent regular season team in the SEC the past 5 years, and it's not even close. Each and every year, you have won at least 18 SEC games. You have hosted regionals. You've been national seeds. You've gone to 1 World Series. You had a Golden Spikes Award winner. You had arguably the best pitcher in the country on your team last season. And you've had nothing to show for it in the postseason. Now, I applaud Dave Van Horn and him recruiting and going about it a little bit different way. So that way it would be ordered to try to get things back on track to get you to that next spot. But it's one thing to get to the College World Series and to have that going, but it's another thing to see all the other teams in the SEC that are winning them. I mean, seeing Tennessee win last year was pretty nasty. It's pretty disgusting. It's pretty awful. You need to get yours, of course. We all know that. But I understand, though, how tough it is to win in baseball. How tough it is to win in the postseason. But there's no more excuses. No one's going to care about what happens in the regular season. Nobody's going to care what you do in the SEC baseball tournament. Nobody cares how many series you win. Nobody cares because the past 2 years, when you've been a national seed, you've gotten bounced at home in your own regional. Cannot happen. Should not happen. Get to the dadgum College World Series. That's your resolution. And finally, on the football side of things, because 2025 football season will technically be in place. We don't know fully what this roster is going to look like just yet because they're still making some additions. We don't know what the rest of spring practice is going to look like. And there's just a lot of things we don't know about. But given the schedule, given the circumstances, given all of that, here's my resolution to you, Razorback football. Show me that your process, your line of thinking, your approach to what you've done this offseason and with the portal season and losing the players you did, gaining the players you did, spending NIL the way you are. Show me that you actually kind of have an idea of what you're doing. Okay? Because on the surface, it looks like you have zero clue how to handle NIL and transfer portal. At least compared to other schools in the SEC. You have been getting players that could work out, might work out, but still hardly convinced that they're just as good, if not better, than the players that you lost. You say you have all this NIL, but yet It doesn't seem like the NIL has really been spent in a major way. There's been players you've missed out on that you felt like maybe you shouldn't have. But you're keeping most of the coaching staff intact, which we'll talk about here in a second. But you ended the season on a nice little note in the bowl game, going 7-6, whatever. It's not going to just set the world on fire. But you did. So my question to you, or at least my resolution to you, is to show in some sort of capacity that all of this is worth it. That all of this makes a little sense. That all of this that you're doing and how you're handling it is going to lead at least to some sort of logical conclusion to where I can look back on it and be like, okay, now I see what they were doing. I see how they were approaching it, and it makes a lot of sense. I'm not expecting much next year, to be honest. It's a tough schedule. A lot of new faces. A lot of new things coming in. But can you just give me reason to believe you have any idea what you're talking about? That you're doing this in a way that you're trying to be the smartest people in the room, and you're not just doing this because you want to convince yourself you're the smartest person in the room. I need to see that, and I need to see that this year. There could be other resolutions too, and I'm sure you'll comment below of all the resolutions you'd like to have for a Razorback fandom, but we'll talk a little bit about a coaching change that's been made in the secondary, literally, of the Razorback defense. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I am here to tell you about Home Field Apparel. I know a lot of you love your Razorback gear, right? You love wearing your Razorback stuff. You probably wear the same shirts to many different games and all of that stuff, and that's great and all. But the reason that you have those old shirts that you love wearing is not because of the comfort, because of the way they look, right? Because they got those cool logos from back then that the university doesn't use much of anymore. Well, you're in luck because Home Field Apparel, they have those old school vintage logos that you love so much. They have them on all these shirts. They have it with the old lettering. They have it with everything, whether it's the hog leaning on the A, the hog running through the A, the slobber hog, whatever it is, they have it. And it's very easy to find at homefieldapparel.com. You can check it out and see all the great Razorback apparel that they have, and really comfortable t-shirts that last a long time, that fit really well, that are very comfortable to go out in or to sleep in, no matter what it is. You got to get it with Home Field Apparel. You can check them out today at homefieldapparel.com. Use my promo code PIG24, PIG24. You'll see all the great stuff that the Razorback fandom that you can add into the mix. Again, it's homefieldapparel.com. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's pretty thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will each team score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more at FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So I was wondering if any changes would happen to the Razorback football staff. And as time went on, it started looking like, well, maybe they'll be intact. The bowl game ends, maybe they'll be intact. Well, this was coming in a report from Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports as well as 24/7 Sports. Georgia State is expected to hire Arkansas assistant Daron Wilson as its new defensive coordinator. That's what the source has been saying. Before spending the last 2 years at Arkansas, Wilson worked at Florida and was a defensive coordinator at McNeese State. So this is the report. It has not been, at least at the time of the recording of this podcast, not been made officially official. But these reports and these guys that are making these reports are usually pretty spot on. So there you have it. He's been working with the cornerbacks mainly. I know he's a secondary coach is what they put him, but From my understanding, Marcus Woodson's been more of the safeties guy, and Daron Wilson's been more of the cornerbacks guy. And a lot of you have probably saw this and probably heard about it, and you're like, well, who cares, right? I mean, the secondary was terrible for Arkansas. The numbers were awful. They were terrible and everything and all of that. And you know what? I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that it was good, because it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't good. However, I do believe that with what's happened with Arkansas in the secondary has been pretty wild since Sam Pittman's really been head coach. You know, I think Daron Wilson did a pretty good job with the cornerbacks, and given the circumstances, they weren't perfect by any stretch, but you know, they were always, in some games at least, some of the games this year, really, really solid, like really good, and really brought it in certain capacities. Like, I thought that they were really good in that Tennessee game that Arkansas played in. I thought they were good against Texas A&M in that game. I thought they were good against Auburn in that game. So, again, it's about the overall numbers, and you got to do what you got to do. However, think about this. Go back to 2020. One of Arkansas's best secondary players or cornerbacks in that year was a guy named Jerry Jacobs, who literally opted into the NFL draft after game 2 of the 2020 season. You know, because that was the thing with COVID and all that. From my understanding, he still is a decision he regrets. He wish he would have stuck it out with Arkansas, but he did. He played in the NFL. Had a nice run in it, too. Like, how's that even a thing? One of your best cornerbacks doesn't even play for you. It's really unfortunate. Think about Jalen Catalon, 21 and 22. Gets knocked out. You know, there's a shoulder injury. Can't play. Both seasons just pretty much done for. Then he has to come back. And then he ends up playing for UNLV. I guess he goes to Texas for a year, then plays for UNLV. Does all right, but when he was at Arkansas, he only had these injuries. You think to the deal with Quincy McAdoo and the injury that he suffered, where he was really coming on as a really solid secondary player in a cornerback position, but then a freak car accident and everything like that just really set him back to where he couldn't play anymore. Think about Dwight McGlothern, who was on one on social media the other day and talking about Sam Pittman, but also was a guy that dealt with injuries and got benched and nobody really knew why. And so it was weird stuff going on with that. And then this year, Jalen Braxton. You know, they played a game, if that, got dinged up a little bit, but decided he didn't want to play at Arkansas anymore, so he just mailed it in and didn't play again, got redshirted and transferred over to Ole Miss. I know injuries are part of it, and I know things are part of it, but man, when I think about all the things that they've had in the secondary, some, you know, against, it could be their fault, but whether it's injuries on the field, opting out, freak accidents, miscommunications, all these things, it's just really frustrating when it lays it all out of like, why though? Why has it had to happen? If all those guys were healthy, who knows? Maybe the defensive secondary would have been a lot better over the past few years. Maybe so. But the point is that with Daron Wilson leaving, I'm not going to sit here and say that he was bad and then it's like, oh, thank goodness that guy's gone. I'm not going to do that. But I also don't think it's a huge loss to where it's all over for Arkansas. He's still going to have people come in, be pretty good for him, and do just fine. That's what I believe. But I like Marcus Woodson really a lot in that secondary. I still like Travis Williams. As long as you have those guys, as long as you have those core group of dudes, it'll be interesting to see what plays out and who they end up hiring. But I don't know. I feel pretty strong still about that. Those are the guys that are going to be just fine, and we'll see where Arkansas goes from there. But we'll talk a little bit about the college football playoff here in just a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I am here to tell you about Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled unwanted subscriptions, saving members $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features was a subscription tracker because I used it to cancel a lot of the services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton because, believe it or not, I had a lot of subscriptions I didn't really know about, and I'm embarrassed by it, but not anymore because I'm saving a ton of money. So go and cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Also going to tell you all about the Game Time app. Listen, attending the new 12-team college football playoff, which we'll talk about, is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of the past playoff games. Can't wait to make new memories with the fun, updated format and extra teams involved. And Game Time has done this. They have made a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your events easier and more fun. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And recently, I know that a lot of you have told me about you using the Game Time app when it comes to buying Razorback tickets, going to basketball games and whatnot. And it's been really easy to do, really easy to use, get a great deal with it. It's a very easy app. It's the only way to do when it comes to buying tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. The playoffs for college football have been something, haven't they? You know, you all went chalk and it was all just whatever as far as the first round. But man, the second round got weird because all the underdogs ended up beating the higher seeded teams. Some of them weren't surprising, but some of them were. But it was still kind of a blowout deal. I mean, Ohio State beat the crap out of Oregon. I think that was maybe more surprising than some. Just 41-21, not even close. You know, Penn State beating Boise State, no surprise there. Notre Dame beat Georgia yesterday, which I'll admit I was a little surprised by. But Georgia not having Carson Beck, not having their quarterback, they couldn't score any points. 23-10 was the final, and it's just kind of goes along with it, and it's not ideal, but it kind of just went along with it. But the great game, of course, was Texas and Arizona State. I mean, that went to double overtime. Texas, I feel like, shouldn't have won. I didn't want them to win. It was a great game, great performance, and also just kind of unfortunate for me that literally like 4 of my top 7 teams I hate the most in college football are the final 4 teams in the playoff. Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame. I really hope no one wins, but someone's going to win, and I don't really know who. I don't really care at this point. But the point is this. Arizona State is a great example of this. Arizona State, Indiana, teams like that can show you that just the right person in place and the right coach and the right setup and the right situation, you can be a great team. You can be a playoff team. Now, I know these teams don't play in the SEC. I understand that. But honestly, the SEC has not done too well, especially when it comes to the playoff. I mean, Texas is the last one standing, and the other ones went 0-2 in barbecue. So, and in fact, both of them lost pretty handedly to their teams. But anybody that ever tells you that in this modern day of college football that, these certain teams have no chance of making the playoffs, you just got to look at these other teams as examples and say, hey, you know what? These teams did. And these teams earned their right to be there and played well enough to even make a run at it. Like they did well enough. I know that there's going to be probably Ohio State and Notre Dame in the title game or whatever. And, nobody in the SEC is going to care necessarily or anything like that. But my point is this. when you see other teams like that, don't ever feel or don't ever make it look like you can never make it to the playoff. If you're a Razorback fan, they should be the ultimate inspiration for you to say, yeah, my team can make it to the playoff. And that's what I'm hopeful for. I don't know if it'll happen this year, and I don't know if it's going to happen with the current regime. But it does give me a little bit of hope. Just a little bit. Hopefully, one day it'll be well-earned and well-deserved. Probably not, but holding out hope. Holding out hope. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel. Next Monday, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you then.